Hey everybody, I wanted to talk for a little bit about Uncle Mel. A lot of you probably know he passed away unexpectedly about 3 weeks ago. And if you are my friend on Facebook, I've posted about it quite a bit, so you know it's been real tough for me. He was definitely a mentor and a good friend, and he was family to me, and as well as one of my favorite musicians and songwriters. And on the Facebook, I've talked about how I met him and how much he meant to me, and why he was just such a phenomenal person. And not really trying to go into that right now. It's hard not to. But if you don't know, you want to hear more, definitely hit me up on there, email me. I'd be happy to talk about it all day. But what I want to talk about now is what a tremendous loss this was to music as a whole, and especially to organists. I've said countless times that Melvin was my favorite organist, and I've also said that I felt that he was, at the time, I would say the best living organist. I've also said the best organist since Billy Preston, or even the best organist of all time. And I stand by that. It's not that he was the most technically skilled, although he was very technically skilled, and it's not that he had the most impressive chords and runs, although he definitely could do all of that, and in fact had been doing all that before most of the organists and keyboard players and whatnot doing it now had ever been born. But the thing to me that made Melvin what I feel that every organist should aspire to be, and a lot of other instruments as well, is his approach. There's really, in my opinion, there's two schools of musicians now. And one school of musician is, I gotta have the fattest chords, I gotta have the fastest runs, I gotta have chops and licks and all of that, and I really want to be the most impressive, and I want to show you that I'm the most impressive. And on a gig or in a church service or whatever, I'm looking for my chances to show you that I'm the most impressive. And gospel chops and YouTube and all that really kind of inspired that, because everybody sees something like, that's dope, I want to try and do something better, and there's a time and a place for that. But a lot of times, a lot of more mature musicians and music directors and artists will talk about and teach you how that doesn't get you high-paying gigs. That gets you footage, that gets you on YouTube, but it doesn't get you paid. And then the other school of musician is, I'm here to compliment the artist. I'm here to, be a part of the team. I'm here to make it sound good as a whole. What I was taught, and what I've often taught, is you make it feel good. It's not about making it sound the most impressive or making it sound the best. It's about making it feel good, and whatever you can bring to the table as a musician, it might be the simplest thing, but it makes it feel right, and that's being able to follow the flow of service, being able to play a hymn, being able to get on an R&B gig and play the 4 chords that they're calling for, no more, no less, and that's the school of musician that is working, because that's what's in demand for artists and for churches, and everybody wants somebody that is mature and knows how to bring things to the table that complement as a whole, not just make themselves look and sound good. And then we also can talk about the best of both worlds, which is the musician that has the chops and knows when to pull them out and knows when not to. And all of those have their time and their place, and there are a lot of really great musicians like that. But Melvin was different than all of that. And what made his approach unique was that he definitely was of the second school. He definitely was of the school where I'm here to compliment, I'm here to make everything feel and sound good, and it's not about me showing off what I can do. But at the same time, Melvin made sure you heard the organ. Because a lot of times when you got a bunch of different musicians in the mix, you know, you might not specifically pick out what each musician is doing. You might say, oh, that sounds good as a whole. And that's the way it's supposed to be. You know, where you now say, okay, you know what, I literally listened to the keyboard and I heard what they're doing, and it was dope, but you don't notice it off the top of the head. You know, you don't, it's not the first thing that jumps out at you. But when Melvin played organ, he took the organ and he shoved it in your face, and he made sure you're going to hear organ on this track. You're going to hear organ in this service. You're going to have all the organ that you can handle, but it was never too much. It was never too busy. It was never out of place. It was never more than what was called for. And he could do all the tricks. He could do runs and he could do chords. And like I think I said before, he had came up with a lot of these runs and chords that the young musicians are doing now long before they were ever born. But it wasn't about that. It wasn't about him doing complicated stuff to make sure you heard him. It was about him picking his places and picking his choices. So it might be something really simple, but the organ was still present. And this is especially unique for an organist, because organ is an instrument that is used a lot for blend. It's used a lot for color, and it's used a lot to kind of smooth things over in the background and just fill up the space. And that's a beautiful thing. And you know, a lot of gospel records, especially, and R&B records as well, you know, that's what the organ is used for. But when Melvin played on a record, you noticed the organ. Even if you weren't a musician, even if you weren't an organist, even if you weren't somebody that could pick that, you'd be like, yeah, I hear that organ. The organist is killing. But it was appropriate. It wasn't too much. It wasn't in the way. And it didn't matter what style of music you put him in. If it was, you know, praise and worship, if it was, you know, his classic New York style, you know, gospel, if it was, you know, something real CCM, whatever it was, he had the right approach. It sounded appropriate. It was never too much. It was never out of place, but it was never timid or in the background or anything that could get lost in the mix in any way, shape, or form. You were going to hear the organ. And it just made him such a powerful presence in everything he did. You know, because if you had Melvin on organ, it didn't matter if it was a little small church service or it was a big recording, you know, it was a substantial contribution. You know? And he didn't approach it that way because he wanted himself to be heard. He approached it that way because he loved music and he loved God, and he really believed that what he was capable of doing with music was something that was important for ministry, and something that was necessary. You know, that what he was able to bring about through the organ was something that God required. You know, and it was just really a unique approach. So if you're watching this and you don't know firsthand what I'm talking about, you've never, you know, heard him in person or listened to a record that he's played on and been like, man, that organ, you know, or whatever it is, you know, if you're like, you know, what's Spiffy talking about, I want to encourage you. Get some of the records, especially go back in the catalog and get some of the old James Hall stuff from the early 90s, you know, anything live where you can hear what he was doing in between songs in addition to what he was doing during songs. Find some of the old Bobby Jones clips when it was just Melvin and either Gerald or Eddie on drums. You know, just organ and drums on Bobby Jones, killing, you know, and just go back and listen, you know, because there's just so much you can learn from his approach. You know, every time I listened to something he played on, I learned something new. Every time I had the opportunity to play with him, I learned something new. You know, and it made me a much better musician as a result. And there's a lot of other great musicians out there right now, a lot of other musicians that have just really phenomenal approach as well, but nobody quite like Melvin. And I just really hope and pray that his gifts are not lost in the coming years, that everybody has the opportunity to still go back and listen to the stuff that's been documented that he's done. And that, you know, young musicians that are coming up now that, you know, might have never even heard of him before can still go back and say, wow, that's something that inspires me to play better. That's how I want to play. So thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely spread the word. Let other musicians know what we lost and what we still have through his work. And if you have anything that I can help with, hit me up. God bless.